I'm standing in front of an Antonov Model 2 Russian airplane. It's the largest biplane in the world. We're going to be talking to the pilot and flying in this airplane. It's a real experience.
And AirEds to continue now, cross runway 27 left, traffic sub high wing on about a quarter mile final after crossing contact ground 121.7. That's third across the left. Affirmative, Twin Cessna 76 Yankee, runway 27 right, cleared for takeoff, report downwind for your touch and goes. 76 Yankee, be a full stop. Stand full stop.
Gillespie Tower, Piper 5808 Hotel, crest with echo for the left.
Piper 5808 Hotel, Gillespie Tower, make straight in, runway 27 left, report 3 mile final.
08 Hotel, we'll go.
This is the world's largest bi-wing airplane, the Russian AN-2, coming in for a landing. He's on short final, ready to touch down. Look at the red star on the tail.
53 Whiskey, space to final. Cherokee 53 Whiskey, thank you, runway 27 right, clear touch and go. Negative, that'll be a full stop, sir. You're clear to land, 27 right then. Winds 240 at 10. 40 at 1053 Whiskey, thank you.
The Russian AN-2.
102, runway 27 left, clear touch and go. 909 or 102. 102, be prepared for possible go around if he doesn't exit. 102. 909 102, runway 27 left, clear for the option.
Asomi, Bolshi, Beplan, Samalut, Vamiria. Was that close?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay.
It's correct.
Tell our viewers what I just said.
This is the biggest biplane in the world.
This is Carl Hayes, and Vladimir, please say your last name.
Yastremski.
I could have done that. Carl and Vladimir are, would importing be the right word? Importing Russian airplanes. Would you tell our viewers just quickly how an American can get hold of Russian airplanes?
Well, there's a lot of trade possibilities in Russia now, and if you find the people that want to do business, it's just a matter of paying the money and getting the product.
So this is what used to be Russia, Soviet Union, and isn't anymore, and they're practicing capitalism.
That's correct. Now, this one actually came out of Kazakhstan, which is south-central Soviet Union, but now a separate country from Russia.
Now, we did a program recently with the EAA, and they were saying that maybe the way to go, since Piper has gone under and Cessna and Beech and the other aircraft companies are not real healthy, maybe the way to go is to build your own airplane. And they're offering plans and help to build a home-built airplane. Maybe there's another alternative. Maybe they could buy a Russian airplane.
Well, that's a possibility. They come in experimental, of course. The FAA hasn't blessed them yet, so they can't be used commercially.
But now that's purely incidental, because any airplane that is built in a foreign country is labeled experimental, even if it's one of the safest airplanes in the world.
Well, that's correct. This one is, there's more of these built than any other airplane since World War II. They use them for any kind of cargo, parachute jumping, military, and short-haul airline. I recently read they've hauled more than 100 million people now with them, so to call this experimental, even though the FAA does, is not quite accurate.
So this would be a tried and tested and proven airplane that's been used, what, 20, 30 years?
Well, they were originally designed in 47, started production in 48. This particular one was built in 1983, has 2,000 hours on it, and the engine and prop and airframe were all rebuilt 150 hours ago. So it's essentially a new airplane compared to most of the general aviation airplanes we have in the United States today.
So it's like a Piper or a Cessna. It just happens that it was built in Russia.
Yes, and it's a little bit bigger.
And stronger. This thing is built like a tank.
Well, it's built for rough country. They put them on skis. They put them on floats. A very short takeoff and landing. It'll take off at full gross weight, over 12,000 pounds and 790 feet. Lightweight, it'll come off at about 350 feet. With a headwind, even less than that. So it's an excellent bush plane.
I was just going to say, I could use that when I go moose hunting in Canada or elephant hunting in Africa.
Well, Africa, you'd have a better chance. I don't know whether the FAA lets you go moose hunting with it or not.
That's true. Vladimir, can we fly in this airplane?
No.
Now.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, let's go fly in this airplane. Tell us about the starting system.
Well, it has an electric inertia starter where the electric motor runs the flywheel up to about 15,000 RPM, and then the clutch is engaged, and that energy of the flywheel is used to turn the engine over.
Let's see if we can hear it. What can you tell us about this airplane that's particularly interesting? The control panel doesn't look Greek to me.
Well, no, the instruments are the same basic function and the same basic layout as we have. They're in metric, however. We use millimeters and kilometers, which, of course, we're converting to. But the basic idea of an airplane, physics, and how a plane goes through the air, it's the same in any country. So the commonality is far greater than people might think.
You pull back on the stick and the nose goes up.
That's correct. Bulk of the things in this airplane are exactly the same as the U.S. standard. Many things between the United States and Britain are backwards, throttles, that sort of thing. That is backwards from each other.
They even drive on the wrong side of the road.
Right, it just seems like many things are that way. Some of the Russian engines turn the opposite direction, but this one is the same as the American right hand from the cockpit.
How much fuel per hour would this airplane drink?
It'll burn between 40 and 50 gallons an hour in cruise, depends on how fast you go, and that's 105 to 115 knots.
But you could be carrying a dozen elephants.
Well, it'll carry about 4,500 pounds of payload, that's fuel and cargo, and with a big cargo door you could get about 4.5 feet wide object in here. The cross-sectional area on the cabin is bigger than a DC-3.
Bigger than a DC-3?
That's correct. It's not quite as long, but it's bigger in area, in cross-sectional area.
Wow. We're about ready for takeoff. Let's fasten our seat belts. Okay? Can you get the instrument panel? It's going, the elevator is going up.
It comes right off the ground, about 350 feet.
What speed do you rotate?
It'll come off at about 45 miles an hour.
The rate of climb must be 800 a minute.
A little more than that empty. It'll get about 1,400 feet a minute.
Wow, I was really impressed. What is the cruising speed again?
Between 105 and 115 knots.
You would have no trouble getting over the imaginary 50-foot tree in this airplane.
Oh, that 1,000 horsepower engine really makes a jump. To get that much lift, you give it up in maximum speed, but you sure have the lift.
You have 1,000 horsepower and a biplane and a 4-bladed propeller.
That's correct.
This rides similarly to the Ford Tri-Motor that we did a show on a while back.
I haven't flown the tri-motor, but I've talked with Mike about it, and we're pretty sure it's very, very similar. He has a longer wingspan because of a just single wing, so his will not recover from a roll quite as quickly as the biplane will because of the shorter wings. But the other characteristics are very, very similar.
I think this thing probably does as well with its one engine as that tri-motor with 3 engines.
Well, the tri-motor's got a little smaller engines. They're 450 Pratts on it, and you got more drag with the extra engines.
Well, 3 times 4 is 1,200, and you got a 1,000 horsepower engine here.
That's correct. And its descent rate is rather extreme, too. You can clear that imaginary 50-foot tree on the approach in and set it right down.
I think my underwear just went down into my shoes.
First time I flew it, I thought sure we were coming down too fast, but it flares right out and lands beautiful.
So you could do a short field landing.
Oh, absolutely. Landing is about the same distance as takeoff.
Does it have mechanical brakes?
No, the brakes are air. That is one difference, that the Soviet aircraft use a lot more air, and whereas we use hydraulics. This particular engine has the electric start, but the Axe, for instance, use air starts. Since the Soviet Union is so far north, they operate very cold weather. Electric batteries are very, very poor when it gets below freezing. Below 0, they're almost worthless, but the air starters work every time. They don't care whether it's hot or cold.
Well, air brakes are actually superior to hydraulic.
Well, you can argue either way. The difference is hydraulic fluid can burn. It certainly makes for more detectable leaks. Probably the biggest objection to air is you have a pressure vessel that in a military environment could catch shrapnel and then explode. So there's a big difference there, but we're not talking about a military application, so it works just fine.
Right, here in the United States that wouldn't exist, so it would probably be a superior application.
Certainly the equal, I think.
I want one of these for Christmas.
Well, you'll have to talk to Santa Claus, Fred. Who knows? He might really think you've been a good boy.
I could be a good boy for one of these. This plane has a red star on the tail. Does that mean it was a military, army, or was it a civilian plane, or what?
Well, it actually was first delivered to Aeroflot, used as a short-haul airliner. Then it went to a sport aero club and was used for parachute jumping, skydiving. And the paint job we had done in military colors simply because that's more representative of for the U.S. Air show area, but that's not its normal colors for airline or sport
Okay,
airplane.
here it goes. Describe this takeoff for us.
Well, the tail popped up and the main wheels went off. It's just about that simple.
It climbs out like a homesick angel.
That it does.
Now, when it came out of the factory, it was used for what?
Its first customer was Aeroflot, which was an airliner. That is a Soviet airline, and they use them for short haul. An airplane that goes that slow you don't use for long distances. But for small towns with limited amount of passengers, it's a very good airplane, anything for 200 miles or less.
So it was used for passengers, not cargo.
This particular aircraft was never used for cargo. That's correct, but many of them are. This has never been on floats or skis. It was used in the south where they don't get enough snow, but in the northern part of the country, and you have to remember all of the Soviet Union virtually is Canada, U.S. border, or further north.
They only have one ice-free port.
That's essentially true, yes. Murmansk and Arhangelsk are used around the north, but they need icebreakers to keep them operating.
I assume this airplane is steel tubing with fabric covering?
It does have fabric on the wings and the control surfaces, but it's all aluminum otherwise. The structure is aluminum. There isn't any steel in it. You'll notice now the wings are relatively thin, but as he lowers the flaps, the whole wing, including aileron droop on the outside, makes a very large barn door to slow that airplane down.
Almost looks like a Stearman coming in, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit bigger than that. He didn't give it all the flaps on this landing, but it will put out an awful lot more than that.
Do the Russians use tricycle landing gear or mostly tailwheel?
No, they're primarily tricycle gear, just like we are. The advantage you have to the tail wheel is that in rough country, you can do a short takeoff and landing quicker, and there are advantages to that. So this airplane was designed for that kind of operation, that kind of mission, and it works just fine.
Now, we know what the red star on the tail means. Do you know what the 01 means?
That's just a number for the particular unit that used it. It could be any number.
Could be like the 8th Army or anything like that.
Well, that particular squadron number is what it is. They don't use the word squadron, obviously, but that's all it is.
When I ask you if it had mechanical brakes, it's because you can hear the brakes.
Yeah, you can hear the brakes, and then you'll hear the psh when he lets off from the air.